Today's story is called Stylin Susie. It's a classic folktale rewritten by Aunti Oni, just for you. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Susie who was very sick. She had a disease called cancer. For a long time, she had to take on chemotherapy to fight the cancer. But she was strong, and her parents had a very positive attitude. Her doctors and nurses were always loving and encouraging. So after months of chemo, Susie was finally cured. Sadly, during the chemo, her long, beautiful hair had fallen out, so she was wearing pretty hats, baseball caps, funny beanies, and headscarves. But now that she was cancer-free, her parents decided it was time for Susie to return to school. Susie couldn't wait to go back to school, and she decided that she was going to go back without covering up her head. On the first day Susie was getting dressed for school, she looked in the mirror, and there was only 3 strands of hair on her head. So Susie took the 3 strands of hair and braided them together. She put a pink polka dot bow on the end of the tiny braid, and she went to school. Her friends at school were so happy to see she had returned to the classroom. Everyone was so kind. No one noticed the thin little braid on her head with the pink polka dot bow at the end. The girls hugged her, and the boys smiled at her. And Susie had a wonderful day. The second day Susie was getting dressed for school, when she looked in the mirror, there was only 2 strands of hairs on her head. So she took the 2 strands and twisted them into a peppermint twist. She put a butterfly clip on the end of her twisted hairs. Her friends at school were so happy to see she had returned to the classroom. Everyone was so kind, and no one even noticed her hair or the skinny little twist with the butterfly clip on the end. The girls hugged her, and the boys smiled at her, and she had a fantastic day. On the third day, as Susie was getting ready for school, she looked in the mirror and found 1 long strand of hair on her head. She took the 1 strand of hair and she curled it around her finger. She wrapped a golden scrunchie around it 5 times, and she made a ponytail. Her friends at school were so happy to see Susie had returned to the classroom. Everyone was so kind. No one noticed her little curled ponytail wrapped in the golden scrunchie. The girls hugged her, and the boys smiled at her, and she had a fabulous day. The next morning when she got up for school, Susie looked in the mirror, and her head was totally bald. No hair was on Susie's head. Susie stared at her face in the mirror, and she noticed her lips were heart-shaped and pretty. Her nose was just the right size for her face. Her ears were okay, not sticking out too much. And her eyes, her eyes were clear and sparkling. Then Susie stared at her head. It was totally bald. Susie smiled and said to herself in the mirror, "Great! I don't have to style my hair today." So Susie went to school, and her friends were so happy to see she had returned to the classroom. Everyone was so kind. No one even noticed her bald head. The girls hugged her, and the boys smiled at her. And Susie handed in all her homework, and she made an A on the math test. At the end of the day, every single day, Susie enjoyed learning in school from her teacher and with her classmates. She also loved her bald head, and from that day on, Stylin Susie rocked her natural beauty. And one day in her art class, she made a big sign that said, "Bald is beautiful." And she had an awesome day, just like we have every day, when we listen to stories, poetry, and music in Aunti Oni Story Village. Hey, family and friends, it's Aunti Oni. Telling stories on this podcast by myself is sometimes very lonely. I'd rather meet you and see your beautiful faces in our Story Village live on Zoom. We won't be alone because wonderful storytellers live in the Story Village. You will see me, Aunti Oni, and I'll introduce you to my international neighbors, Priyanka Chatterjee, Sister Shirley, Holly Robson, and George O. of Fishmonger Stories. Ready, get set, and go! Mark your calendars for the first Saturday on November 6th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To register for your secret code and password, email us at storyvillagelive@gmail.com. Space is limited, so don't be late, because we can't wait to see you and tell stories, share songs, and poetry from around the world in Story Village Live on Zoom. Thanks for listening, and invite your family and friends to Aunti Oni Story Village. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To let me know how much you enjoy my labor of love, write a review and give me a bunch of stars on Apple iTunes. Want to see Auntie? Visit auntioni.fun. Stay safe, and I'll see you later, sweet potato, after a while, honey child.